What's going on, Johnny Nation? Welcome to episode 205 of the Eye of the Storm podcast. My name is David Barrow, and St. John's has made another seismic wave of an addition, this time adding Keyshawn Hall, a transfer from Auburn. And man, I told you guys when there's something to talk about, I'll be back. And it's been fairly quiet in regards to actual St. John's news, but over the last week or 10 days, things have really started to pick up. So figured I'd pop back on here, talk to you guys for a few seconds, give you guys the latest updates that we can talk about, that we know about. And my goodness, yesterday evening, August 25th, about 7 o'clock, just before 7 o'clock, news broke. Keyshawn Hall made the decision to come to St. John's to be coached by Rick Pitino. Hall was the fifth leading scorer in the SEC last season, averaged 19.3 points per game, along with 7.1 rebounds per game, 2.3 assists per game. He was a bucket getter. Shot over 37% from three. This is a guy that when you can do that in that league with those kinds of athletes against that defense, against that physicality, you're a special player. And this is somebody that has a lot of good things to him, and he's going to bring a lot to the table for St. John's. That's stating the obvious, but it's kind of easy to understate how huge this is because St. John's was kind of running out of time, and there was a lot of talk of where is the talent available, who can St. John's get to really make up for the loss of Donnie Freeman. And over the course of the last week, they've been able to do that with not just Keyshawn Hall, but also with Reed Bailey, and we're going to get to him as well. The focus on this episode is certainly going to be about Keyshawn Hall, but I do want to touch on everything that's been going on over the last 10 days because it's been crazy. I can barely kind of keep up with it myself. Any lawyer that you talk to is, I think, is equally as confused, and they're going to throw around a ton of jargon that's in a lot of this legal paperwork. And, the normal fan like you and me, we're just sitting there like, oh, what the hell is this crap, man? Like, there is this growing sentiment in college basketball right now amongst the fans that are so tired of this shit. Like, this sport has strayed so far away from normal that it is unrecognizable. And we are now dealing with daily court briefings that the fans basically need to have a law degree in order to process. And then there's tons of questions. Then the way that things are worded is confusing. Everybody is questioning who's eligible, who's not, what's going to happen. And the things that have happened over the last few days have only made it worse. I can speak directly to the fact that I know St. John's staff is fed up. They're tired of dealing with this. The players are tired. The administration is tired. Like, it is so annoying to not know who is on your team right now, who is eligible, who's not, who's waiting for an appeal, who needs something special to happen in this state and that. And my God, it's insane. The contingency plans that you need to have in place, waiting for the possible shoe to drop on somebody to not get eligible, or if he is, it's a mess. It is a mess, and it's August 26th, and the season is around the corner, and we don't know who's on the team yet. That's the reality of it. We have no idea. Classes start in a few days. It's August 26th. I'm recording this at around 8 o'clock. We have no clue who the full 15 are that's going to suit up for St. John's as of right now. That's a fact. That's crazy. That's the nature of the sport right now. Is this the snowball effect from NIL? Does one thing have to do with the other? In a way, yes. But this is all about essentially eligibility. This is all about pros from Europe getting eligibility status here, what the NCAA considers a student athlete who should be eligible to be in those guidelines. And now what we saw yesterday on August 25th is the start of conferences essentially levying their own rules against their own teams that if they don't follow, there's going to be strict penalties. I'll get to that in a little bit. Let's just talk about Keyshawn Hall and what St. John's has done over the last few days. The addition of Keyshawn Hall now gives St. John's the fourth and fifth ranked available transfers in the country and has propelled Rick Pitino's year four team to the number two ranked transfer class in the entire country, only behind Kentucky, according to 247 Sports. Who did Keyshawn Hall pick St. John's over? Kentucky. Absolutely huge. Kentucky has been no slouch. They just added Mark Mitchell, who got approved through another court case as well. So these are the big splashes that these teams are doing. And, I will say this, that I think that there's a lot of people who are really turned off by the sport right now. I think a lot of people are really turned off by uh, perhaps what a team like St. John's is doing, a team like Providence who added Dink Pate, a team like Kentucky, again, sure. There's plenty of teams that are adding international players, that are getting guys who signed two-way deals, that are getting guys who signed Exhibit 10 deals, uh, or at least it was announced that they did. Now, there's a lot going on with that as well. Keyshawn Hall, there was a report that he signed an Exhibit 10 deal. That's not true. They announced it, but there was never actually a contract executed. You can confirm that by going to the Miami Heat NBA website, and under transactions, there is no signing there. You could do the same with Mark Mitchell. You could do the same with a lot of these guys who are in question. A lot of these social media teams and all that, they will make their graphics and congratulating guys for signing and all that, but until actual legal documents are signed, it's technically not official. And that also creates a gray area as well, because there's just so many rules to keep track of right now, and that's what we're unsure about. But Keyshawn Hall did not sign a two-way deal, did not sign an Exhibit 10 deal. He did play summer league with the Miami Heat this last summer, but he made the decision to return back to school. He was part of the the ruling in Ohio where they got a temporary restraining order, which allowed him to become eligible. Now there's a stay in that case, which we are now waiting until the end of September, September 22nd, to be heard in order to see where that is at. I will get to the specifics in a little bit. For the St. John's fans who maybe are not crazy locked into the SEC or whatnot, you guys might remember a Keyshawn Hall, because this is another Rick Pitino special where if you play against St. John's and you beat them or you do something memorable, Rick Pitino and this staff are going to remember. Now, it's not hard to remember Keyshawn Hall. He was one of the most dominant scorers in the country, but Keyshawn Hall and the Tigers played against St. John's in the Players Era tournament this past November in Las Vegas. Keyshawn Hall dominated the Johnnies, helped Auburn beat St. John's 85-74 while dropping 20 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, getting to the line 12 times. He made 9 of them in 35 minutes, man. It is he was impressive. He did it early on in the season. He did it all throughout the season. This is a guy that scored over 20 points 19 times last season, and he's now joining a starting lineup with Tunde Yesufu, who, as you guys know, joined St. John's on the eve of the decision day to go into the NBA draft, to keep your name in there or not, and he decided to come to St. John's. Well, Tunde, Keyshawn Hall, the number 4 and 5 best transfers available in the country, both going to St. John's. St. John's is the only team in the country to have 2 top 5 guys in their lineup per 247 Sports. St. John's is the only team to, I believe, have only to have 2 guys in the top 10. I think that if you want to stretch it to top 20, I believe it's Louisville, Texas, Kentucky, and St. John's. But obviously, a lot of talent coming to Queens. And in my opinion, Tunde Yesufu at the 3, Keyshawn Hall at the 4, will now form arguably the best duo in the Big East, one of the most formidable 1-2 punches in the entire country. You're talking about 2 guys who scored almost 20 points per game in the Big 12 and the SEC, 2 of the best conferences in the sport. And Tunde Yesufu did it as a freshman. Keyshawn Hall is an older player. This is Keyshawn Hall's 5th team in 5 years. But look at that duo. You've got firepower. And when St. John's lost Donnie Freeman, they lost their starting power forward, and everybody's like, all right, well, what are they going to do? And then you start doing all of this. All right, well, Babacar Sane is going to have to move to the 5. And all right, well, Prey can be the 5-2, and then Babacar's the 4. And all right, we're going to need some of the freshmen to really step up. And it it became a lot of moving pieces and trying to figure out who's available. Well, not only does St. John's add arguably a player that's better than Donnie Freeman and Keyshawn Hall, but what they also did is they added Indiana transfer Reed Bailey, who came to St. John's on August 18th, and that's huge as well. Last night, when Keyshawn Hall tweeted and confirmed that he's a Johnny, he said, quote, "I'm happy to be committed to one of the best coaches of all time and learn and develop under the St. John staff. Nothing else matters but winning." I don't know about you guys, but I mean, that's the first checkbox in my book. And sure, it's easy to say the right thing. It's easy to tweet the right thing. But that's what I want to hear, especially after a guy who, you look at it on paper. This is a guy that's been four different schools in 4 years. He was at UNLV to start, went to George Mason, then to UCF, and then Auburn before transferring out to St. John's. At George Mason, he averaged over 16 points per game and 8 rebounds per game. Then he transfers up to Central Florida, where he averaged 18 points per game and over 7 rebounds per game, shot 37% from three. Over his career, he shot over 83% from the free throw line for his career. The last 2 seasons, he started every game he's played, 33 at UCF, 36 at Auburn. So, like, this guy comes, and, like, on the surface, you're like, oh, man, another 5-and-5 kind of guy, another guy who can't stay home. Is he not, like, committed or loyal to one place? There's a lot of baggage, right, that you could start to say about it. Then there's this story that, apparently that Keyshawn Hall has some character issues, that he's been a problem with some of the teams that he's been on. And, honestly, a lot of that is hearsay. Depends on who you talk to. You'll hear some stories that will say, hey, I know a story about this or that. You know, for St. John's fans who have been talking about Keyshawn Hall now for about 2 weeks, I really don't think you should care. With all due respect, I don't give a shit. Uh, you're coming here to be a part of this team, and you're coming to play for Rick Pitino. The biggest thing that I will say is, for any kid who potentially had any kind of baggage or character issues or whatever the hell you want to say, had some issues with teammates, had some issues on the court, whatever. You're coming here with a very clear, focused plan. Keyshawn Hall was just a member of the Miami Heat Summer League team. This is a kid that has NBA aspirations. It's very obvious. And he got close because, listen, you got a Summer League invite. Now you're obviously going to try and get drafted. Well, what better place to do that than with Rick Pitino and this staff that just put their entire front court into the NBA? This evening, on August 26th, it was announced that Bryce Hopkins signed a two-way deal with the Denver Nuggets after being drafted. I believe it was 2 weeks ago. Dylan Mitchell signed his two-way deal with the Boston Celtics to be an official member of their team, and he was the 40th pick in the draft. And as we know, my guy Zubi Ejiofor was the 23rd pick in the NBA draft to the Atlanta Hawks, and he signed a fat deal, 4 years, over $17 million. So why not? I mean, you want to talk about getting to the pros. You want to talk about developing, taking your game to that one extra level. You want to do it at the brightest lights on the biggest stage, Madison Square Garden, where most of St. John's home games, are going to be played this year. Hey, it lines up pretty perfectly. And then the first thing that you say and acknowledge is, like, I'm here to work and play under Rick Pitino. He gets it. And so anybody that wants to bring up the character stuff, again, one, I don't give a shit, because with all due respect, Keyshawn Hall is going to be here for 1 season. But at the same time, like, when you're in his position, your goal is very singular. You're here to win. You're here to put your best foot forward. You're here to develop, and you're here to get to the NBA. Nothing else matters. And if you try to, stumble or trip yourself to get to that goal, one, you're an idiot. Two, you're only hurting yourself. And you're not going to do that to a Rick Pitino team, because a Rick Pitino doesn't play that. Well, we're dealing with the GOAT. We're dealing with the best coach of all time. We're dealing with a no-nonsense coach. Like, I don't need to tell you guys this. So everybody that has been chirping and talking about, I've seen a lot of Auburn fans. I've seen a lot of, fans from, across the country saying all this stuff about, oh, St. John's was stupid for bringing this kid in. Are you nuts? Are you crazy? St. John's just added one of the best scorers in the entire country. A 6'8" absolute machine at getting the ball in the basket, who can space the floor, who can shoot the three, who can move around the floor, who can pair so well with a dynamic point guard in Quinn Ellis, who can pair so well with an Ian Jackson, who can pair so well with a Tunde Yesufu, with a Babacar Sane, with a Ruben Prey. This is a perfect fit in the sense of what they were missing when they lost Donnie Freeman. Now, you want to poke holes in the theory of like why Freeman maybe, not Freeman, I'm sorry, Keyshawn Hall might not work. I mean, he needs the ball in his hands, right? So he's going to need the ball. Tunde Yesufu needs the ball. Ian Jackson needs the ball. Babacar Sane needs the ball. So you got to figure that out. But that's where a Quinn Ellis comes into play. That's why he's so important. That's why the question surrounding his eligibility, which we'll get to, is certainly concerning. But he's the one that makes all of this work. And if you guys remember my episode with Gary Maitland, his trainer, this is a floor general in every sense of the word. This is a guy who is interested in setting the table more than anything else. He is the truest point guard that we have had on this team under Rick Pitino. So I'm super excited about that. It's a dynamite addition. It is a needle moving addition. It is an addition that, in my opinion, previously to Keyshawn Hall, even with the addition of Reed Bailey, I think St. John's was in that 15 to 20 range prior to start the season. I think now you're inside the 10. I think St. John's is firmly inside the top 10 in the entire country to start the season. I seriously believe that when St. John's had Donnie Freeman and all these eligibility questions weren't a concern, that they should have been the favorite to win the Big East. Now, since that time, there's been a lot of discussion that UConn is now the favorite and is going to be. When Big East Media Day rolls around, that the pick is going to be UConn. I think now with you add a guy like Keyshawn Hall, and if the eligibility checks out for everybody, I think you're back to having a serious conversation about St. John's and UConn being right there, 1A, 1B, right next to each other. And if you're trying to break a tie, the team that just won back-to-back Big East conferences, the team that just won back-to-back Big East tournaments, in my opinion, should get some serious consideration to being that winning team to be picked. Now, does it matter? No, but I mean, again, it's optics. And St. John's has, in my opinion, earned the benefit of the doubt. Rick Pitino and this staff, Steve Masiello, Bob Walsh, Talik Brown, Ricky Johns, and newest assistant coach, friend of the podcast, Peyton Siva. Welcome to the St. John's coaching staff. All deserve the benefit of the doubt because this is what you've played and what you've earned. That's just facts. And is UConn loaded and talented? Of course they are. Braylon Mullins is back. Silas Demery is back. But they've added Najee Hines. They've added Nick Kamenia. There's a lot to like about that UConn team. There's some really stud freshmen, Colbin Landrew, and a few other guys, man. Like, this is going to be a really talented team. But St. John's is damn good. Their top 7 is insane. Quinn Ellis, Ian Jackson, Tunde Yesufu, Babacar Sane, Keyshawn Hall, Reed Bailey, Ruben Prey. That's damn good, man. That is damn good. You gotta like it, man. So a lot of people might be questioning, just like, why is all this been happening? Why is there so much uncertainty? Why is there so much movement? Just to update you guys, I mean, you guys have been following. You guys are all diehards. George Jovanovic was unable to join the team because of visa issues. This is something that we've heard about for quite a while. They've been working on it for a long time. St. John's has had their lawyers and legal teams fighting tooth and nail to get this done. Unfortunately, they weren't able to, so Jovanovic went back to his old club. It is what it is, but St. John's able to, pivot, make room, find a way to add somebody, and they did that with Reed Bailey. Gildas Jimenez, a few weeks prior, was ruled academically ineligible, another European high school prospect that just didn't work out with the grades. It sucks. It's a kid who potentially had some potential way down the line. Maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but when that happens, all right, another spot opens up. What are you going to do? Got to find a player. So they find Keyshawn Hall. We are waiting on Sambor Moranka to, I believe, get to campus. I don't think he's here yet, but St. John's is waiting on his eligibility to get confirmed. I believe that that is going to happen. But again, he's one of these guys who's a little bit older, who's been playing professionally overseas. So that is up in question. So what's going on right now? With all these new additions, could there be more on the horizon? The answer is yes. Why is that? Because St. John's is currently waiting on status updates. They are currently waiting on a ruling one way or the other on Quinn Ellis's eligibility. Now, Quinn Ellis has not been ruled ineligible. There are reports out there that he has been ruled ineligible. That is not true. Quinn Ellis is currently eligible, but uh, there are essentially a lot of dealings in court right now that he hasn't been ruled ineligible. Let's just say that. They need confirmation of that. They are waiting on that. With Babacar Sane, from what we understand, Babacar Sane currently is, I believe, ineligible, although that's not 100% certain as of August 26th. But we believe that Babacar Sane at the moment is ineligible, and they are waiting on court hearings that they're going to be going to court. They're going to be appealing, and they're going to try and get a clearer answer. Speaking to sources, St. John's is pretty confident that there's going to be a enough of legal action taking place that multiple of these guys are going to play. Keyshawn Hall was part of the case in Ohio and was initially granted his fifth year. The NCAA appealed; they want to stay. Oral arguments are in the appeal stage, and that is scheduled to be on September 22nd. Again, sources that I've spoken to say they're confident that Hall will be on the floor for the Red Storm. I really don't think that all of this due diligence would have gotten done by Keyshawn Hall's team, by St. John's legal team, obviously, and they would have gone through this process to, kind of say, hey, Keyshawn's our guy. They've been working on this for a while, and I think they're confident that they will get Keyshawn Hall eligible, and I will talk about what just came down today as well. Again, the one major question mark between Quinn Ellis, Keyshawn Hall, Babacar Sane, the biggest question mark right now is Babacar Sane. He played over 70 games in the G League as well as in the Euro Pro market in Germany. Uh, on Wednesday, a favorable ruling came for Bryson Warren, a player who signed with Texas A&M prior to being ruled ineligible. This ruling, literally today, granted a temporary restraining order, a TRO, declaring him eligible to participate in men's basketball activities by a judge in Brazos County in Texas. Why does this matter for St. John's and Babacar Sane? It's essentially identical in fact. And so lawyers who will be working with St. John's and for Sane can obviously bring this up and say, hey, how are you going to allow this but not this? Warren played in the G League for the Westchester Knicks. He scored almost 20 points per game. And he played also with the Sioux Falls Skyforce. And he signed an Exhibit 10 deal with the Miami Heat in 2024. Babacar Sane played 75 games in the G League with 5 teams from 2022 to 2025, while also playing in Germany. Sane signed an Exhibit 10 deal with the Utah Jazz, but he never suited up before they let him go shortly after. So again, those facts are important. I think that if you legally you bring up both cases, how can you say that Warren is okay to play, but Babacar Sane is not? So we'll see. In regards to Reed Bailey, he is 6'10". He's a four-man. He averaged 8 and 3 at Indiana. This happened last week. A lot of people were like, Reed Bailey, he didn't play that well in Indiana. But like, let's kind of pull back the curtain. Let's talk about like what the facts are here. This was a case of a player that transferred up and the fit being totally off, and not necessarily his fault. You have an absolute breakout season of 18.8 points per game, 6.1 rebounds per game, 3.8 assists per game, shot over 41.5% from three with Davidson. Like, hell yeah, you're going to try and cash in and get paid and play at the biggest level and really try and capitalize on this season at Davidson. And so he goes to Indiana. You go to a blue blood, you go to Bloomington, and like you think that, okay, I'm going to be used the same way. I'm going to be that four. I'm going to be able to stretch the floor. I'm going to be able to do what I do. if you kind of searched Reed Bailey's name and you talked to some Indiana fans, man, they hated this guy. They were so harsh on him. They thought that this guy was a bust and that he sucked. And meanwhile, he averaged 8 and 3. Like it's not horrific, but again, when you are coming off of 18-6-3 and shooting 41.5% from three, obviously that's disappointing. But now let's look at what happened. Reed Bailey was used as the five man in Indiana. Reed Bailey was the biggest guy on the team. Reed Bailey's not a center. He was used as the five, and that's just not what he was comfortable in. Now you're in that conference that plays slow, that plays tough, and he's getting banged around in the paint. He's getting hit. He's drawing a lot of fouls. He's not able to play the way that he was able to play at Davidson. And it took him off his game. He was unable to do what he did at Davidson to be effective. Um, but now comes to St. John's. He was granted his fifth year because he was in a case in California. He's been approved. He's good to go. Reed Bailey gives St. John's that needed experience in that front court. Now, again, he was added before Keyshawn Hall. So now you put that in conjunction. You got a lot of experience in that front court. You got a third-year Ruben Prey. And what does this do? This takes a lot of pressure off of the freshmen, Theo Adema and Lazar Stojkovic, who were going to be asked to do a lot to help Ruben Prey. Now, Ruben Prey is going to have a lot of help from Bailey, not necessarily at the five, although Rick Pitino said that he's going to be mainly a four and he'll some minutes here and there at the five, maybe. But again, he's going to primarily be a four man. Keyshawn Hall is going to be a four as well. Lots of talk about Babacar Sane at the five. The whole thing of adding all of this front court depth, it just takes pressure away from Ruben. All right. And it gives St. John's another option here. You're not going to have to play Theo Adema potentially 8 to 12 minutes anymore. And I think that's really important. Some fun, interesting things about Reed Bailey, second in the entire country on shooting fouls drawn last season. This isn't actually something that he has done a lot. And this wasn't just a one-time thing. This is a guy that knows how to get to the line. And he was, I believe, 33rd in the country the year prior. So this isn't a fluke. This is what he does. He knows how to use his body. He knows how to draw fouls, and he knows how to get guys in the air. Super important. And for a big man, he can really make his free throws, shoots over 76%. The case, like Reed Bailey is coming in here to be a really important piece that stretches the floor, I think. He's going to be able to be used kind of like he was at Davidson, play a little faster, play a little more face up instead of back to the basket and not get bullied as much in the paint because he's not going to be asked to play that five spot. I spoke to somebody familiar with Bailey's game. Can put the ball on the floor at 6'10", solid passer, has the ability to switch onto guards if necessary, and didn't really seem comfortable at IU. I was told that he thinks the fit is perfect in the Big East, makes a lot more sense. Rick Pitino said we think it fits perfectly for what we need. He's a veteran basketball player. He told Zach Brazil of the New York Post that he's seen it all, he's done it all. He knows how to play in the motion offense, has good size, and he really knows how to play the game. So that's important. It's just solid additional depth, and that's what you're gonna want. So look at this. I mean, I'll talk about the top seven. St. John's is top seven. I mean, how many top seven are better than this in the entire country? Quinn Ellis, Ian Jackson, Tunde Yesifu, Keyshawn Hall, Ruben Prey, Babacar Sane, Reed Bailey. You'd be hard pressed to find better. It's a solid squad. You got some solid depth. Lefty going into year 3. He's got to take that step up. Avery Brown's going to be a solid backup point guard for Quinn Ellis. Ian Jackson, I'm anticipating a breakout season. Year 3, this is the time. Back into the shooting guard position, all of this talent around you. Breakout season for Ian Jackson loading. Okay, let's talk about the eligibility situation with Ellis and Sane. Again, from what I have been able to gather and what I have been told as of Tuesday and this morning, Tuesday the 25th, 26th this morning, St. John's was hoping to have a clear answer, or as clear of an answer as you possibly could legally, this week on both of them. They did a gargantuan amount of legwork legally with the NCAA prior to both of these teams, both of Ellis and Sane joining St. John's. So they knew what they were getting themselves into. The They were essentially told that yes, they will be eligible to play. Now there's so much that's happening after the fact. Um, for us as fans, obviously it's confusing. It's hard to follow. It's frustrating. I get it. A lot of people aren't even excited for the season coming up. I get it. The non-conference was essentially finalized today. I reported in the morning that St. John's is going to be playing Siena. I'll get you guys the dates, everything in a bit. St. John's is also playing Colgate. I reported that this morning. And then Columbia put out their non-conference schedule and confirmed that St. John's is playing Columbia December 1st at Carnesecca Arena. The only part of the non-conference schedule right now that we don't know is when the Iona game is going to be, and that's going to take place at Madison Square Garden, and St. John's is essentially waiting for Madison Square Garden to give them a date. There is legal uncertainty right now all throughout the country. It seems like every minute a new court case is coming out, a new conference is saying something, and fans are like, okay, well, now who's eligible and who's not? Like earlier today, in Tennessee, a judge ruled in favor of the NCAA to issue a stay, kind of like what happened in Ohio that made Keyshawn Hall technically ineligible. Well, now NJ Benson, who transferred from DePaul to Georgetown, is ineligible. So is, I believe, AJ Storr, who was in that case, who committed to UNLV last week. It is so confusing. It is so frustrating. And it is so much legal mumbo jumbo to keep up with. But that's just where we're at. So Keyshawn Hall is waiting for his case to be heard in Ohio on September 22nd. I'm not sure if St. John's is going to try and move something or try to get it heard in New York. Maybe. Well, we'll see. But for now, for what I understand, Keyshawn Hall is going to wait until September 22nd, and St. John's is comfortable with that to see what happens. Now, I have heard that there's contingency plans. If, God forbid, a Keyshawn Hall, a Quinn Ellis, or a Babacar Sane is ruled ineligible, St. John's does have a plan on players to replace him with. The one name that has been pretty public and is in court documents, St. John's essentially filed in conjunction with Vince Iwuchukwu and his team. Vince, who played for St. John's, essentially wrote in the court papers that Vince has a standing offer to come back to St. John's. I believe he's also mulling over a potential return to Georgetown, but he got cleared in New York. So I think that that's just a waiting process. But, should somebody not be ruled eligible, I think there's a chance that you might see a reunion with St. John's and Vince Iwuchukwu. So we'll see about that. In my opinion, I think Keyshawn Hall, as well as Reed Bailey, will not have any issues. In June, the NCAA passed the new rule that allowed the 5 seasons of eligibility in 5 years. Again, Reed's case was in California, which was granted a TRO. Hall's is in Ohio, which has a stay. A case in Tennessee, again, today received a stay. It's all just so frustrating. And, we're just going to try and keep up. What happened yesterday is really important, I think, for those that are keeping up. On August 25th, kind of late in the evening, about 8, 9 o'clock, the SEC, Notre Dame, and the Big Ten announced essentially a policy change in their conference. This wasn't like a sweeping thing from the NCAA. This was conference specific to their own conference. And they announced that it said schools cannot have an athlete on their roster who previously declared for the NBA draft and failed to properly withdraw. SEC schools also cannot roster a player who signed a contract with an NBA or G League team. And the policy also bans players who were listed on an NBA or G League roster. Huge sweeping rules that we heard kind of later in the evening on the 25th that the ACC and Big 12 would essentially be adopting similar rules. That's not fully confirmed yet, although the Big 12 did come down and essentially kind of mimic that, not fully today. ACC hasn't done it just yet. But the big question is like, okay, well, what does the Big East do? Will the Big East follow suit? If that's the case, then Dink Pate from Providence is no longer eligible. Babacar Sane is no longer eligible, for sure. That could also potentially rule Quinn Ellis out because he did play summer league with the Portland Trailblazers once upon a time. Although I think he would essentially be saved. This would affect Baba Karsane and Dink Pate specifically in the Big East, handful of other players throughout the league as well. The thing is that the Big East is about to have Commissioner Tim Brosnan start. He is about to take over for Val Ackerman on September 1st. It is August 26th. We haven't heard what the Big East is going to do just yet. Does Val Ackerman make a decision on this as literally the last thing on her plate? Do they wait until Tim Brosnan starts on 9-1 and then he says something? Would his first action be to essentially rule against his conference and the teams and kind of shoot themselves in the foot as far as competitive balance goes when you're trying to get as many teams into the NCAA tournament following a few seasons of really poor showing? Sources that I spoke to are pretty split on if the Big East will adopt this. Most think that the Big East will not, as it would affect too many programs and it's too late in the calendar year to do this. Time will tell, but we really don't know. This is so up in the air. Um, and I know a lot of people just want rules. Like, just give us something to follow. So we'll see. It sucks not knowing exactly who is eligible to play, who's on your team on August 26th. It's insane that we don't have a team pictures starting. It's insane that we don't have jersey numbers confirmed. It's insane that we don't have, all of this done yet. But the NCAA is a mess. It's crazy. Um, I will say that, playing in the summer league doesn't automatically mean that guys are ineligible or anything like that. We are simply waiting for full on clarity. Um, if you ask me right now, and I know a lot of fans have been doing it today, who do I think will be eligible? Who will not? Uh, Gun to my head right now, you probably get 2 out of 3 between Ellis, Hall, Sane. I would, my fingers are crossed from basically everything that I've heard that St. John's can get all three eligible. They're confident that they can do so. If I would have to bet one person doesn't get eligible, it would probably be Baba Karsane. We'll see. I think Hall gets cleared because of the 5-and-5 rule is pretty clear, and there's been plenty of guys who have gotten their TRO to play. So I think Hall will play. I think Ellis will play also. He never fully signed with a G League team or never put pen to paper on a two-way deal or an NBA contract. So uh, this is just all about his status and playing in the top Euro League and then being also old, an older player and coming to St. John's. So we will see, man. I really, really hope that this gets cleared up really soon. I'm told that St. John's wants some kind of an answer by shortly after Labor Day and not really further past Labor Day. They need to know who's on this roster. They want to get things going. Kids are supposed to be reporting to campus. Workouts are supposed to be starting really, really soon. It's I don't know if I've confused you more, but I think you can tell the frustration. Um, the thing is what the SEC did yesterday and what these other conferences are essentially doing in agreement is should any team violate these rules, strict penalties are going to be levied, starting with the head coach suspended for half the season. And then the other big one is half of the operating budget for the team that violates it is going to be stripped. And like, that's insane. And this is coming from your own conference because they're siding with the NCAA, who is trying to figure out a way to make it a quote unquote level playing field. I think it's a farce to try and say that college sports has a morality basis to try and find a common ground for everybody being fair to play. Stop dancing around it. It's all BS. This is pay to play basketball right now. The NIL era has changed everything. The NCAA has not put in rules since the start of NIL, and now all of a sudden wants to stand on the morality of we want to make sure that everybody is fair to play and is on equal playing ground. Nobody's buying it, man. The NCAA is a joke. They can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. They keep trying to be reactionary instead of proactive. We have, like, nobody would have cared about this if they would have levied this in September for right now, or do it now for next year. You can't make these decisions on August 26th. Everybody's roster is 98% built. Everybody's NIL and rev share is allocated. You are messing with so many lives and jobs and players. And I guess the NCAA just doesn't care because they know at the end of the day, people are still going to watch. People are still going to watch the NCAA tournament and, still going to fill out brackets, and they don't care. It's just the NCAA talks out of both sides of their mouth with this morality bullshit and all this, fairness, equality. Everybody should be under the age bracket. Everybody should be, under the same status from not playing pro and this and that. Like, make all the rules that you want. Make it clear. Issue it to teams. Give teams a full calendar year to institute it to make sure that everybody has the proper starting time. You don't do this on August 26th. So let's get back to St. John's. Again, Keyshawn Hall, big addition to St. John's. We're waiting on the eligibility to get confirmed. I do believe he will be, I don't want to say vindicated, but I think he will be getting approved to play at the end of September when his case gets heard at September 22nd. He adds a big fire piece to Rick Pitino's team. And he's somebody that's coming to fall in line, get coached, develop, and get to the NBA. So is Tunde Yesufu. So is Ian Jackson. So are all these guys. Had a few questions from Twitter. I've kind of answered a lot of this so far, but let's start. Mateo asked, are there any spots available to make another ad, or can we open one up? Well, we have seen that. Is it possible? Yeah. I mean, you could essentially tell somebody to leave. I don't think there's anything stopping you from telling a player who is currently on the team that, like, hey, sorry, you got to go. I don't think there's any rules prohibiting that. I just don't think a team would do that in good faith. It's kind of scummy, but could it happen? Yes. We asked if they would be more focused on adding guard depth than front court depth. I mean, it's really hard to answer that question. Right now, all 15 spots are filled. But again, you're waiting on eligibility for 3 players, essentially maybe 4 with Moronka. So you're not sure where you're going to have to add. Again, Vince is kind of, it seems like, lying in the weeds and available to St. John's should they want or need him. I think they're okay at guard. I mean, again, if God forbid Quinn Ellis gets ruled ineligible, I do know there is a contingency plan to add somebody potentially. We'll see if that comes to fruition. But man, that's worst case scenario. That's the one piece you really can't lose right now. Paul asked, aside from the top 7, who is the Dylan Darling surprise player this year? Man, that's a good question. I think the top 7 is obviously locked and loaded. Who is the surprise player? Honestly, I won't be surprised if the surprise guy that makes people kind of fall in love with him and like really makes him a kind of a fan favorite from a toughness, like New York guard kind of perspective, is Avery Brown. Avery Brown, just like this 6'4" point guard who is pretty tough. And St. John's hasn't had a whole lot of depth at that point guard position. I've gotten to talk to Avery a bunch. Just a good kid, somebody that teammates really like. He's a tough guy, man. And he's somebody that's going to get to go up against his former team on December 1st. St. John's announcing the Columbia game. So I guess, that's my answer for right now. One more question from JT Bombers. The fan base seems to be overly high on Ruben Prey starting at the 5 outside of the Duke game. I'm not seeing it what is needed at the 5 from him. I hope he bulked up. He can get quicker under rim protection. A dude like Taris Reed would gobble him up. Uh, yes, obviously. I mean, Taris Reed got the nickname the Bear for a reason. He's a monster. But like Ruben Prey is no slouch on defense. Ruben Prey is really athletic. He's long. He can block shots, and he's got a motor. Again, I keep saying with Ruben Prey, I think he's probably the X factor on this team if they can reach their ceiling. And again, don't expect Zuby Ejiofor. There's completely different players, completely different size, completely different games. But I'm gonna trust Rick Pitino in this sense that, he said that Ruben's paid his dues, and he's going to have to learn the position. Now, Ruben Prey was benched essentially in the Duke game because he couldn't play the 5, and he there wasn't room to get him onto the court in a really tight game. And I know everybody was sitting around and was like, "Hey, man, he needs to figure it out." And how do you not have his shooting on the court when he did what he did against Duke? Uh, but I have a lot of faith in Ruben. I really like him as a player. I know like the conversation early in the transfer portal season when they were looking at Mustafa Cham from Michigan, or were they trying to get Masamba Jop. I think that would have been great too, and keep Ruben in a kind of extended floor spacing 22-minute, 25-minute role. He's going to be asked to do more now. But again, the additions of Reed Bailey and Keyshawn Hall certainly help that. If Babacar Sane is eligible, he's going to play the 5 spot as well. And I'm personally high on the prospect of Theo Ademo, who is built like a brick house. He is 6'10", 6'11", 7 feet tall already as a freshman. He's huge, about 250, 260. He's going to be a force to be reckoned with. And maybe not freshman year, but I think that you're going to see glimpses of potential. So that's kind of the front court situation. That's kind of it. That's kind of the quick wrap up on what the hell has been going on at St. John's. Again, huge addition of Keyshawn Hall on August 25th gives St. John's, in my opinion, a top 10, probably top 7, 8 team in the entire country now. I think you can make a case that St. John's over UConn is number 1 in the Big East right now with this addition. Maybe an unpopular opinion. And then again, the addition of Reed Bailey is huge, but everything right now stems from, will we get the eligibility answers? Gun to my head, 2 out of the 3. 2 out of the 3, I think, get eligible. If they get 3 out of 3, amazing. Frankly, that's what should happen. The fact that we're having these questions is ridiculous. It's frustrating. I've said it a million times. Let's get Babacar on the court. Let's get Quinn Ellis on the court. Let's get Keyshawn Hall on the court. Let's get all these guys playing. I want to see this team, man. Really fun pieces, especially that top 7, man. Really, really fun to see them on the court. Again, I mentioned the non-conference schedule was announced. Well, I helped announce it, but we've got some dates. November 2nd, Monmouth season opener, Carnesecca Arena. November 11th, Colgate at Carnesecca Arena. November 15th, Syracuse at Madison Square Garden. November 18th, Siena at Carnesecca Arena. The Players Era in Las Vegas, Thanksgiving week. November 24th, we'll be playing Oregon. November 26th, St. John's will either play Louisville or Texas Tech. November 27th, one of Maryland, Tennessee, Iowa State, or San Diego State. Then, potentially, if St. John's is in the final of the Players Era in Las Vegas, that would be, I believe, on November 28th. I was told by a source today that if that happens, and only if that happens, then the December 1st game against Columbia will not happen. But for now, December 1st, Columbia Carnesecca Arena. December 5th, Arizona at the Garden. And then December 12th, Alabama in Alabama, the return game from last year. That is your non-conference schedule right now. And again, the only thing that is not known right now is the date for Iona, which is scheduled to be at Madison Square Garden. St. John's is waiting for MSG. Johnny Nation, I appreciate you joining me. I hope I was able to kind of catch you up with what's been going on the last few weeks. If it was a little confusing, join the club, man. It is confusing. It is freaking insane at what's going on in this sport. It is not fun. It's not. But what I will say is St. John's is going to be trying to do what everybody else is. And St. John's is going to try and take every advantage that they can that everyone else is given the opportunity to do. Keyshawn Hall is a Johnny. Welcome to the Red Storm. Reed Bailey, welcome to the Red Storm. 5-year guys, you are eligible to play. Welcome to the Johnnies. Let's go hang another banner. Let's go win a third Big East conference. Let's go win a third Big East tournament. Let's go further than the Sweet 16, which we did last year. Let's do it. Because now you're here and all of Johnny Nation is behind you. Super excited. Keyshawn Hall, a humongous addition. I really like the Reed Bailey edition. I think it's a great fit. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think he's going to fit so much better in the Big East. I think he's going to fit really well for a Rick Pitino team. Go check out some of those highlights at Davidson, man. Yeah, you'll see a fun player. 6'10", can run the floor, can score it. And Keyshawn Hall, man, just one of the best pure bucket getters in the country. Welcome to the Johnnies. And I'll keep you guys updated. We'll see what happens, man. We'll see what the hell is going to happen in this sport over the next month. Let's see what happens over the next few weeks. I'll be back when we have something to update, and I'll be back to talk to you guys, hopefully with good news coming up in a few days. Let's get our guys eligible, and let's roll these balls out, man. September's around the corner. I hope you and your family are having an amazing summer. Thank you so much for everybody who's reached out and be like, hey, where's the pod? Where's the pod? Where's the pod? It's here. When there's something to talk about, I'm here. Johnny Nation, thank you as always. I'll catch you next time.